The text message from Danny felt like a slap across my face. "Can't make it tonight, babe. Work emergency." Right. Because investment bankers have so many emergencies at 7 p.m. on a Friday. I'm Sophia, and I was about to learn just how deep betrayal can cut. "He's not coming again?" My mother's disapproving voice carried across our family's expansive dining room. "This is the third time this month, Sophia. I don't understand why you waste your time with that boy." I gripped my phone tighter, forcing a smile. "He's busy, Mom. The market's been volatile lately." "The market's always volatile," my cousin Livia chimed in, not bothering to look up from her laptop. "But family dinner is family dinner." The aroma of Mom's signature lasagna filled the air, but my appetite had vanished. I'd spent the last 3 years defending Danny to my family, especially to Mom, who never thought he was good enough. The irony was, I was starting to wonder if she might be right. "Speaking of business," Dad cleared his throat. "Livia, how are those quarterly reports coming along? The board meeting's next week." "Almost done, Uncle James. Just need to double-check some numbers with the new accounting software." Something in her tone made me look up. Livia had been handling our family business's finances for the past year, and lately, things felt off. Maybe it was the way she always changed the subject when I asked about specific accounts, or how she'd started taking calls in whispered tones. "I could help," I offered, reaching for my wine glass. "I did major in finance after all." Livia's head snapped up. "No need. I've got it under control." "Let her handle it, Sophia," Mom interjected. "You're busy enough with your own work." I was about to argue when my phone buzzed again. Danny's name flashed across the screen, but this time it wasn't a message meant for me. "Wrong move sending those projections from your work email. Use the secure server next time. S doesn't suspect anything yet." My blood ran cold. The message was clearly meant for someone else, but who was S? Me? "Excuse me," I muttered, standing up abruptly. "I need some air." I headed toward Dad's study, my mind racing. The door was slightly ajar, and I could hear Livia's voice inside. When had she left the table? "Everything's set for next week," she whispered. "Danny's got the offshore accounts ready. They'll never trace it back to us." I pressed myself against the wall, heart pounding. "No, I'm telling you, it's perfect timing," she continued. "With the new software implementation, we can make it look like a system error. By the time anyone figures it out, we'll be long gone with the money." The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Danny and Livia, working together, to steal from my family. "Is everything okay?" Mom's voice behind me made me jump. "Fine," I said quickly, too quickly. "Just needed to make a call." Back at the table, I couldn't stop my hands from shaking. Across from me, Livia had returned, cool as ever, typing away on her laptop. My phone buzzed one more time. "Sorry about tonight, babe. Make it up to you next week. Dinner at that Italian place you love?" I stared at Danny's message, seeing it for what it really was. Another lie in what was probably a long string of them. But this time, I wasn't going to be the naive girlfriend. This time, I needed help from someone who knew Danny better than anyone. I pulled up another contact, Trevor, Danny's estranged older brother. We'd only met a handful of times, and Danny always changed the subject when I asked about him. Now I knew why. "Need to talk. It's about Danny. Important." His response came almost immediately. "Finally figured it out, did you? Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m., Riverside Coffee." I looked up to find Livia watching me, her expression unreadable. I forced myself to smile, raising my wine glass in a mock toast. Let them think I was still the same trusting Sophia. Let them think I was blind to their schemes. But tomorrow, everything would change. Because if there's one thing my family taught me, it's that loyalty matters, and betrayal comes with a price. "More wine, anyone?" I asked, standing to grab another bottle. Inside, I was already planning my next move. Danny and Livia had no idea what was coming. Riverside Coffee was packed with the usual Saturday morning crowd, but I spotted Trevor immediately. He sat in a corner booth, looking exactly like Danny, but somehow completely different. same dark hair and sharp features, but his eyes held a weight his younger brothers never did. "You look like hell," he said as I slid into the seat across from him. "Thanks. You look exactly how I remember." I wrapped my hands around the coffee he'd already ordered for me. "Black? 2 sugars?" "Danny mentioned it once." Trevor's mouth twisted into a wry smile. "Back when we still talked?" "About that." I leaned forward. "What happened between you two?" "Same thing that's happening to you now." He pulled out his phone, scrolling through files. "Danny has a pattern. Find someone successful, gain their trust, then bleed them dry." My stomach lurched. "He did this to you?" "To my company. 3 years ago, he convinced me to make him CFO of my tech startup. Within 6 months, he'd siphoned off nearly $2 million through a series of fake vendors." Trevor's voice remained steady, but his knuckles whitened around his coffee cup. "By the time I caught on, the damage was done." "Why didn't you press charges?" "Our parents." He laughed without humor. "They believed his lies about me mismanaging the company, said I was jealous of his success. Haven't spoken to any of them since." I pulled out my phone, showing him the message I'd intercepted. "He's working with my cousin Livia now. They're planning something for next week." Trevor read the message, his expression darkening. "Board meeting, right? When is it?" "Thursday. They've implemented new accounting software recently. Livia said something about making it look like a system error." "Classic Danny." Trevor started typing on his phone. "He did the same thing to me. Created a ghost server that—" The cafe's door chimed. I glanced up and froze. Livia had just walked in. "Don't turn around," I whispered to Trevor. "My cousin just came in." He kept his eyes on his phone. "Take my number. We need to move fast if we're going to stop them." I quickly added his contact information as Livia ordered at the counter. My phone buzzed with a text from Danny. "Miss you. Lunch today?" "Keep playing along," Trevor advised, watching me read the message. "Let them think everything's normal. Meanwhile, I'll have my IT guy look into the new software implementation." "Why are you helping me?" I asked suddenly. "You don't owe me anything." Trevor's eyes met mine, and something shifted in the air between us. Maybe I'm tired of watching my brother destroy people's lives. Or maybe— He paused as Livia walked past our booth, apparently without noticing me. "Maybe I want to make up for not stopping him sooner." "I need proof," I said once Livia had left. "Something concrete to show my family." "We'll get it. But Sophia?" His hand caught mine across the table. "Be careful. Danny's charming, but he's dangerous when cornered. I learned that the hard way." "How did you not see it coming?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. "Same reason you didn't. He's family. You never expect family to betray you." Trevor's phone buzzed. "That's my IT guy. He can meet us tonight to look at the software specs. You in?" I thought about my family's business, built over 3 generations. About my dad's pride when he talked about its legacy. About Danny's lies and Livia's secret calls. "I'm in. But first," I pulled up Danny's text. "I have a lunch date to keep. Sophia." Trevor's voice stopped me as I stood to leave. "Whatever happens, don't let him know you suspect anything. Danny's most dangerous when he feels trapped." I nodded, then hesitated. "Trevor? Thank you for believing me." "Ha, thank me when we take him down." His smile was grim but determined. "And Sophia? Be careful with those feelings I see in your eyes. Getting involved with another Gardner brother might not be the wisest move right now." I felt my cheeks flush. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't." He stood, throwing some bills on the table. "Meet me at the tech hub at 8 p.m. And remember, act normal with Danny." As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed again. "Danny. Can't wait to see you, babe. Got something special planned." I took a deep breath and typed back, "Can't wait." The game was on, and this time, I wasn't playing by Danny's rules. Lunch with Danny felt like an acting performance. Every laugh, every touch, every kiss, all carefully calculated while my skin crawled beneath his hands. "You seem distracted," he said, reaching across the table to touch my cheek. "Everything okay at the office?" Just stressed about the board meeting. I watched his reaction carefully. Livia's been working so hard on those reports. Ah, yes. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. She mentioned she's been putting in extra hours. I bet she has, I thought, but said, maybe you could help her? With your financial expertise? Better not. He sipped his wine. Wouldn't want anyone claiming nepotism, right? The rest of lunch passed in a blur of small talk and lies. By the time evening rolled around, I was exhausted from maintaining the charade. The tech hub was housed in an old warehouse, converted into a modern office space. Trevor's IT specialist, Wyatt, looked more like a surfer than a tech genius, but his eyes sparked with intelligence as he examined the software specifications I'd managed to download from Livia's laptop during a coffee spill incident. "Oh, this is good," Wyatt whistled, fingers flying across his keyboard. "They've created a shadow system within the main accounting software. Every transaction gets mirrored to an offshore account, but the original books show normal operations." Trevor leaned over Wyatt's shoulder. "Can you trace the destination?" "Working on it, but..." Wyatt's screen filled with code. "They're routing it through multiple shells. Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Singapore." "How much?" I asked, dreading the answer. Wyatt's fingers paused. "Based on these patterns, close to 5 million so far." The room spun. I grabbed the edge of the desk to steady myself. "That's not all," Wyatt continued. "There's a massive transfer scheduled for next Thursday, right after your board meeting." "How massive?" Trevor's voice was tight. 20 million. "That would bankrupt us," I whispered. "The company wouldn't survive." Trevor's hand found my shoulder. "We won't let that happen." "Got something!" Wyatt exclaimed. "Look at this email chain. It's encrypted, but..." His fingers flew across the keyboard. "There, between Danny and Livia." The decoded messages appeared on screen. My heart stopped as I read. "Board meeting confirmed for Thursday. S's father still suspects nothing. Once the transfer clears, we'll be untraceable." "What about S? She's getting suspicious." "Don't worry about her. I've got her wrapped around my finger. Besides, by the time she figures it out, we'll be long gone. Together." Together. The word burned in my brain. "I think I'm going to be sick," I muttered. "There's more," Wyatt said quietly. "They've been planning this for over a year. Look at the date these accounts were set up. It was 2 weeks after Danny and I had started dating." "Son of a bitch," Trevor growled. "He targeted you specifically, used you to get close to the company." My phone buzzed. Danny again. "Missing you already? Dinner tomorrow?" "We need to move faster," I said, showing them the message. "The board meeting's in 5 days." "We need concrete proof," Trevor replied. "Something that can't be explained away." Wyatt raised his hand. "I might have an idea, but it's risky." "I'm listening. We set up a honeypot. Make them think they've found an even bigger score. When they try to access it..." "We catch them in the act," Trevor finished. "Exactly. But we'd need someone on the inside. Someone they trust completely." They both looked at me. "No," Trevor said immediately. "It's too dangerous." "It's our best shot," I argued. "They already trust me, and I can get access to everything through Livia." "Sophia, I can do this, Trevor." I met his concerned gaze. "I have to." My phone buzzed again. This time it was Livia. "Hey, cuz, need your help with something tomorrow. Early morning coffee?" "Perfect timing." I showed them the message. "Looks like my chance is coming sooner than we thought." "Be careful." Trevor's hand lingered on mine. "If they suspect anything, they won't." I squared my shoulders. I learned from the best, right? Time to beat them at their own game. As I left the tech hub that night, another message from Danny lit up my phone. "Sweet dreams, beautiful. Can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you." I typed back, "Me too, babe. Forever." The lies came easier now. Maybe because I finally understood. Sometimes you have to embrace the darkness to bring light to the truth. Tomorrow, Operation Honeypot would begin, and Danny and Livia would never see it coming. Early morning coffee with Livia turned out to be exactly the opening we needed. She arrived at the cafe looking stressed, her usually perfect hair slightly disheveled. "I need a huge favor," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "The new software's giving me hell with the board presentation." "Whatever you need," I replied, channeling all my sincerity into those 3 words. "Could you help me review the numbers? There's so much data to sort through, and with the meeting just days away." "Of course." I took a sip of my latte to hide my smile. "We can start today if you want." The next few hours were a masterclass in deception, from both of us. While Livia thought she was cleverly limiting my access to certain files, I was secretly copying everything to the encrypted drive Wyatt had given me. My phone buzzed periodically with updates from Trevor, who was monitoring the data transfer remotely. Each message made my heart race, but not entirely from fear. "Got another batch of evidence. You're doing great. Stay safe." Around noon, Danny showed up unexpectedly at the office. My stomach clenched as he wrapped his arms around me from behind. "Surprise, beautiful." His lips brushed my ear. "Thought I'd take my 2 favorite women to lunch." I felt Livia tense slightly before her face broke into a bright smile. "Perfect timing. I'm starving." Over lunch, I watched their subtle interactions with new eyes, the way they avoided direct eye contact, how their hands never quite reached for the shared breadbasket at the same time. They were good, but not good enough. "Actually," I said, setting down my fork, "I've been thinking about something." They both looked at me, and I forced myself to appear nervous, vulnerable. "Dad mentioned setting up a trust fund for me. Something about early inheritance tax benefits." I watched their expressions carefully. "It's quite substantial." Danny's eyes lit up for a fraction of a second before he controlled his expression. "That's wonderful, babe. When does it come through?" "Next week, right after the board meeting." I looked down at my plate. "I was hoping you could help me manage it, Danny. You're so good with money." "Of course." He reached for my hand, squeezing it. "Anything for you." Later that evening, I met Trevor at his apartment to review our progress. Wyatt had set up a command center of sorts in Trevor's home office, monitors displaying various data streams and security feeds. "They took the bait," I said, collapsing onto Trevor's couch. "Hook, line, and sinker." "You're incredible." Trevor handed me a glass of wine. "But watching you with him today..." "Jealous?" The word slipped out before I could stop it. Trevor's eyes met mine, intense and unguarded. "Yes." The air between us crackled with tension. He moved closer, his hand brushing my cheek. "This is probably a terrible idea," I whispered. "Definitely," he agreed, but didn't move away. "We should focus on the plan." "Absolutely." Neither of us moved. "Trevor, His lips met mine, soft at first, then with increasing urgency. For a moment, I forgot about Danny, about Livia, about everything except the feel of Trevor's arms around me. Then my phone buzzed. Danny's name on the screen brought reality crashing back. "We can't," I pulled away reluctantly. "Not yet. Not until this is over." Trevor nodded, running a hand through his hair. "You're right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." "Don't apologize." I touched his cheek. "Just rain check?" He smiled, but his eyes were serious. "Be careful tomorrow. The closer we get to exposing them, the more dangerous they become." "I know." I checked Danny's message. "Miss you. Sweet dreams. Beautiful." "The fake trust fund documents are ready," Wyatt called from the office. "They'll stand up to basic scrutiny, but anyone digging deep will see they're bogus." "Perfect." I stood up, straightening my clothes. "That's exactly what we need." Sophia?" Trevor caught my hand as I headed for the door. "What happened tonight?" "Was exactly what I needed to stay strong," I finished for him. "But right now, I need to focus on taking down your brother." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Tomorrow then. Same time?" "Same time." I squeezed his hand before leaving. "And Trevor, that rain check? I plan to cash it in." As I drove home, my phone lit up one last time. Livia. Thanks for your help today, cuz. Danny's right. You're the best thing that ever happened to us. I smiled grimly at the road ahead. They had no idea just how right they were. The fake trust fund documents sat innocently on Livia's desk as I pretended to review more financial reports. It took exactly 6 minutes for her to take the bait. "Oh my God," she breathed, picking up the papers. "Sophia, is this real? Dad just gave them to me yesterday." I feigned embarrassment. "I haven't even told Danny yet." Her fingers trembled slightly as she read the numbers. $30 million, all conveniently scheduled to be transferred the day after the board meeting. "You should tell Danny right away," she said, trying to keep her voice casual. "He'd want to know about this. I was thinking of surprising him." I bit my lip. "Maybe you could help me set up the accounts, since you're so good with the new software." "Of course!" She grabbed her phone. "Let me just make a quick call." I pretended to focus on my computer screen while straining to hear her whispered conversation in the hallway. Through my earpiece, Wyatt confirmed he was recording everything. It's even bigger than we thought," she hissed into her phone. 30 million? Yes, I'm sure. No, she suspects nothing. Tomorrow night? Okay. Yes, I'll handle the transfers myself." My phone buzzed with a text from Trevor. "Got it all. They're planning something for tomorrow night. Be careful." Danny showed up at the office an hour later, practically glowing with fake charm. "Ladies," he announced, holding up a bottle of champagne. "I think we need to celebrate." "Celebrate what?" I asked innocently. "Just life." He winked at me. "And love, and new beginnings." Livia excused herself, leaving us alone in the office. Danny pulled me close, his kiss more possessive than usual. "You know I love you, right?" he murmured against my hair. "Everything I do, it's all for our future." I fought back the urge to push him away. "I love you too." "Then trust me." His eyes bore into mine. "No matter what happens in the next few days, trust that it's all for us." The intensity of his gaze sent chills down my spine. For the first time, I glimpsed the predator beneath the charm. Later that evening, I met Trevor and Wyatt at our usual spot. The tech hub was quiet, most workers gone for the day. "They're accelerating their timeline," Wyatt announced, showing us surveillance footage of Livia entering the office at midnight the previous night. "She's been setting up new transfer protocols. Tomorrow night," Trevor confirmed. "They're planning to take everything, your family's money and the trust fund they think exists. We need to stop them before—" I broke off as my phone lit up with a text from Livia. "Hey cuz, noticed you left your laptop at the office. Don't worry, I'll keep it safe. See you tomorrow." "Shit," I jumped up. "My real files are on that laptop." "It's okay," Wyatt assured me. "Everything's encrypted. They won't be able to—" "Wait." Trevor held up his hand. "This might work in our favor. Let them think they've found something." "But if they break the encryption, they won't," Wyatt grinned. "But they'll try. And when they do, we'll have proof of attempted corporate espionage," Trevor finished. My phone buzzed again. Danny this time. "Can't stop thinking about you. Dinner at my place tomorrow night?" "Perfect timing," Trevor said, reading over my shoulder. "Keep them separated. I'll handle Livia while you keep Danny distracted." "No." I stood up, pacing. "It's too risky. If anything happens to you." "Nothing will happen." Trevor caught my shoulders, stopping my nervous movement. "Trust me." "That's what Danny just said." I met his eyes. "But I only trust one Gardner brother." The tension from the previous night returned, electric and undeniable. Trevor's hands slid down my arms. Guys." Wyatt cleared his throat. "Not to interrupt, but we've got movement. Livia's accessing the laptop now." We sprang apart, focusing on the monitors. Lines of code scrolled across the screen as Livia attempted to breach the encryption. "Got her," Wyatt whispered triumphantly. "Every attempt is being recorded and traced." My phone lit up one final time. A message from my mother. "Darling, don't forget family dinner tomorrow night. No excuses this time. I stared at the message, a plan forming. Actually, I said slowly, I think it's time we moved this out of the shadows. Tomorrow night, we end this. At family dinner. Trevor raised an eyebrow. You want to expose them in front of everyone? What better way to ensure they can't talk their way out of it? I smiled grimly. Besides, my mother always said sunshine is the best disinfectant. It's risky, Trevor warned. So is falling for my ex-boyfriend's brother, I countered. But here we are. His answering smile was both tender and dangerous. Here we are indeed. Tomorrow, everything would change. One way or another, the truth would finally see the light of day. The day of the family dinner, everything moved at lightning speed. Wyatt had set up hidden cameras throughout our dining room, while I kept my mother distracted with questions about table settings. Darling, since when do you care about proper placement of dessert forks? Mom asked, eyeing me suspiciously. Just trying to be more involved, I smiled, adjusting a napkin, while Wyatt finished concealing the last microphone. Is Danny still coming? Of course, and Livia's bringing that new laptop of hers. Says she has some exciting business presentations to share. I bet she does, I thought. Trevor and I met one last time at the tech hub before dinner. Wyatt had transformed the space into a command center, multiple screens displaying various camera feeds from my house. Everything's in place, he announced. The moment they try to initiate any transfers, we'll have them. Remember, Trevor gripped my shoulders. Let them make the first move. We need concrete proof. I know. I straightened his tie. He'd be arriving as my surprise guest. Just stay close to me? His hand cupped my cheek. Always. The doorbell rang at exactly 7. Danny arrived first, carrying wine and wearing his most charming smile. Mrs. Gardner. He kissed my mother's cheek. You look lovely as ever. Mom beamed. Such a gentleman. Sophia, why don't you help Danny with the wine? In the kitchen, Danny pressed me against the counter, his lips finding mine. It took everything I had not to push him away. Tonight's going to be special, he whispered. I have a surprise for you. Can't wait, I managed to say. Livia arrived next, laptop bag clutched tightly to her chest. Sorry I'm late. Had to finish some last-minute preparations. For the board meeting tomorrow? Dad asked. Something like that, she smiled, setting up her computer at the dining table. The doorbell rang again. Showtime. I hope you don't mind, I announced, walking to the door, but I invited someone else. Trevor stepped into the room. Danny's wine glass froze halfway to his lips. What is he doing here? Danny's voice was deadly quiet. Trevor? Mom looked confused. I didn't know you two were... We've been seeing each other, I said clearly, watching Danny's face. Professionally. He's been helping me understand some financial matters. The color drained from Livia's face. Her fingers twitched toward her laptop. Brother, Danny's smile was razor sharp. What a surprise. Danny, Trevor nodded coolly. Livia, interesting software you're running there. Livia slammed her laptop shut. Just work stuff, nothing interesting. Really? I moved to stand beside Trevor. Not even the offshore accounts? Or the transfer protocols set for tonight? The room went deadly silent. Sophia. Danny's voice was soft, dangerous. What are you talking about? Show them, I nodded to Trevor. He pulled out his phone, projecting screenshots onto the dining room wall. Bank statements, transfer records, encrypted emails between Danny and Livia. What is this? Dad stood up, staring at the numbers. Your daughter and my brother are confused, Danny started, but Trevor cut him off. 5 million already stolen, 20 million more scheduled for tomorrow, plus the 30 million they thought they were getting from Sophia's trust fund. Trust fund? Mom looked bewildered. What trust fund? The fake one we created to trap them, I explained. They took the bait, just like they took everything else. Livia lunged for her laptop, but Wyatt emerged from the kitchen, holding up a hard drive. Looking for this? Already copied everything, including your midnight activities from yesterday. You don't understand. Danny reached for me, but Trevor stepped between us. Baby, everything I did was for us. Save it. I held up my phone, playing the recording of his conversation with Livia. We have everything. James, Mom whispered to Dad. Call the police. Huh, no need. Trevor smiled grimly. They're already here? On cue, officers stepped in from the garden and front door. I watched as realization dawned on Danny's face. He'd been outplayed at his own game. You set me up, he snarled at me. After everything you did to me? I stepped closer, finally letting my anger show. You never loved me. I was just your ticket to my family's money. And you. He turned to Trevor. My own brother. You stopped being my brother the day you stole from me, Trevor replied calmly. Consider this karma. As the police led Danny and Livia away, Mom collapsed into a chair. All this time, she whispered. Right under our noses. I'm sorry, Mom. I knelt beside her. I had to be sure before I said anything. Dad placed a hand on my shoulder. You did good, sweetheart. Both of you. He nodded to Trevor. Monsieur, speaking of which, Mom's eyes narrowed at our joined hands. Is there something else you want to tell us? I looked at Trevor, seeing my future in his eyes. Actually, I smiled, there is. The night wasn't over yet, but the hardest part was done. Now came the fun part, explaining to my parents why I was falling for my ex-boyfriend's brother. But that, at least, was a story worth telling. The police station buzzed with activity as Danny and Livia were processed. I sat in the detective's office, watching through the window as they were photographed and fingerprinted. Miss, Detective Martinez leaned forward. Can you walk us through the timeline one more time? Trevor squeezed my hand under the table as I recounted everything. The intercepted messages, the fake trust fund, the recordings. Wyatt had provided all the technical evidence, laying out the digital trail of breadcrumbs that led straight to Danny and Livia. The total amount they attempted to steal, Martinez consulted his notes, comes to $55 million? That we know of, Trevor added. There might be more we haven't uncovered yet. Danny's lawyer arrived, all expensive suit and rehearsed confidence. Through the glass, I watched Danny lean in, whispering frantically. He's trying to cut a deal, Martinez explained, following my gaze. Offering to testify against Livia in exchange for leniency. Of course he is. Trevor's voice was bitter. He did the same thing when he stole from me. The door opened, and my parents walked in with our family lawyer. Mom's eyes were red but determined. We want to press full charges, Dad announced. No deals. Dad! I started, but he held up his hand. No, Sophia. They betrayed this family, both of them. He turned to Martinez. We have evidence of similar schemes at 3 other companies. Pattern of behavior. Danny's head snapped up at that, eyes widening as he saw my father through the glass. The confident mask slipped, revealing raw panic underneath. Let me talk to him, I said suddenly. Absolutely not, Trevor and Mom said simultaneously. I need to. I stood up. I need to know why. Martinez nodded to the officer, and moments later, I sat across from Danny in the interrogation room. He looked smaller somehow, without his designer suit and practiced charm. Come to gloat? He asked quietly. No, I came to understand. I leaned forward. Was any of it real? Does it matter now? It matters to me. Danny ran his hands through his disheveled hair. You weren't supposed to be so smart, so... Good. It would have been easier if you were stupid. Like the others. The others were marks. His eyes met mine. You complicated things. By falling in love with you? By making me almost want to change. He laughed hollowly. But old habits, right? Trevor warned me about you. Trevor! Danny spat the name. My perfect older brother, always doing the right thing. And now, he gets you too. He didn't get me, I corrected. He earned my trust, something you never understood. A commotion erupted outside. Through the window, I saw Livia being led to another room, screaming. It was all his idea. He planned everything. I just did what he told me to. Danny's face hardened. Looks like Cousin Livia's singing already. Was she really worth it? I asked. Betraying everyone for her? She was convenient. He shrugged. Like you were supposed to be. I stood up, finally seeing him clearly. You know what's sad? You had everything. Family, love, opportunities. And you threw it all away for money. Says the girl born with a silver spoon. No, Trevor's voice came from the doorway. Says the girl who just saved her family's legacy from a con man. Danny lunged forward, but the officers were faster. As they restrained him, he shouted, You think you've won? You think this is over? It was over the moment you underestimated her, Trevor replied calmly, taking my hand. Outside the interrogation room, Martinez confirmed they had everything they needed. With the evidence you provided and their conflicting testimonies, we're looking at significant prison time for both of them. Mom pulled me into a fierce hug. I'm so sorry I ever pushed you toward him. It's okay, Mom, I hugged her back. We all got fooled. Not all of us. Dad looked at Trevor appreciatively. Thank you for helping expose this. Sir, Trevor straightened. About my relationship with Sophia. Save it for dinner tomorrow, Mom interrupted, a slight smile playing on her lips. I think we've had enough drama for one day. As we left the station, I heard Danny's voice one last time. Sophia, this isn't over! But it was. The security footage, the financial records, the encrypted emails, everything pointed to years of calculated fraud. Danny and Livia weren't just facing charges from us, but from every company they'd scammed. Ready to go home? Trevor asked softly. I looked back at the station one last time, then at the man beside me, the one who'd helped me uncover the truth and find justice. Yes, I smiled, taking his hand. I'm ready. Behind us, the sun was setting on one chapter of my life. But ahead, that story was just beginning. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters as the verdict was read. Danny and Livia had been sentenced to 15 years each, with no possibility of early parole. As the journalists shouted questions, Trevor guided me through the crowd to where my parents waited. It's really over. Mom squeezed my hand. How do you feel? Lighter, I replied, watching Danny being led away in handcuffs. He caught my eye one last time, but the sight no longer filled me with dread or anger, just pity. The company's quarterly reports came in, Dad announced as we walked to the car. We've already recovered most of the stolen funds, and the new security protocols are working perfectly. Speaking of the company, I straightened my shoulders. I've been thinking about taking a more active role. Dad stopped walking. You mean, if you'll have me, I smiled. Someone needs to keep an eye on those accounts. We'd love that. Mom wiped away a tear. But what about your plans with Trevor? Trevor wrapped an arm around my waist. Actually, we have an announcement. If it's about the wedding, we already know, Dad chuckled. Trevor asked for my blessing last week. Not just the wedding. I held up a business proposal. Trevor's tech company is developing new security software. We thought maybe a merger would be beneficial for both families. Mom grabbed the proposal, scanning it quickly. This is brilliant. A perfect blend of both companies' strengths. And a fresh start for the Gardner name, Trevor added. Something good to replace what Danny tainted. Back at the house, Wyatt was waiting with champagne and news. The last of the hidden accounts has been traced, he announced. Every penny is being returned to the victims. To justice, Dad raised his glass. And family, Mom added, giving Trevor a warm smile. Speaking of family, I cleared my throat. There's one more thing. I handed Mom an envelope. Inside were adoption papers. Trevor was officially taking in his teenage cousin, whose parents had abandoned her just like Danny had abandoned his responsibilities. Sarah needs a home, Trevor explained, and we have plenty of room in our hearts. Mom's eyes welled up again. When does she arrive? Tomorrow, I smiled. We thought maybe her new grandmother could help decorate her room. The joy on Mom's face was worth everything we'd been through. Later that evening, Trevor and I stood in our garden, watching the sunset. The engagement ring caught the fading light, sparkling like our future. "Having second thoughts?" he asked softly. "About any of it? About marrying you? Never." I turned to face him. "About running a company, raising a teenager, and merging two family legacies? Maybe a little terrified." "Good thing you're not doing it alone." He pulled me closer. "We make a pretty good team. Better than Danny and Livia, at least," I joked. "Speaking of which," Trevor's expression turned serious. "Sarah asked about him, about why her cousin's in prison. What did you tell her?" "The truth. That sometimes people make bad choices, but that doesn't mean we stop giving others a chance at love and trust." From inside, we heard laughter. Mom and Dad reviewing Sarah's room designs with Wyatt, who'd somehow become part of our extended family, too. "You know what Danny never understood?" I watched my family through the window. "That real wealth isn't in bank accounts. It's in moments like this." "Getting philosophical on me?" Trevor teased. "No, getting honest." I faced him again. I thought I lost everything when I discovered Danny's betrayal. Instead, I found everything I never knew I needed. The porch light flickered on, and Mom called us in for dinner. Another family tradition, but now with new meanings and members. "Ready to build our own legacy?" Trevor held out his hand. I took it, feeling the strength of his grip and the promise in his touch. "As long as it includes regular family dinners and absolutely no secret offshore accounts." "Deal!" He kissed me softly. "Though I do have one secret." "Oh?" "I've loved you since that first coffee shop meeting. Even when we were plotting revenge, all I could think was, please don't let her be like him." And you weren't. You were so much more." Mom called again, more insistently this time. "We should go in," I laughed, "before she sends a search party. Lead the way, future Mrs. Gardner." "That's future CEO Mrs. Gardner to you." His laughter followed me inside, where our family waited. Not the family I was born into, or the one I almost married into, but the one I chose, the one that chose me back. Sometimes the best revenge isn't serving justice, it's finding happiness despite those who tried to steal it from you. And that's exactly what we did.
I was lounging in our living room, the one with the big windows that looked out over the garden, when Alex burst through the door. Mark, my husband of 27 years, was sprawled on the sofa, half watching some show on TV, half napping. Our lives were comfortable, to say the least. I was a senior exec at a jewelry firm, and Mark had his own construction business. We worked hard for what we had, and our country house was a testament to that. "Mom, Dad, I've got news," Alex announced, his eyes sparkling with excitement. He was our only child, the center of our world, and usually, his news ranged from getting a promotion at work to winning some local football match with his mates. But today, he had a different kind of glow about him. Mark sat up, rubbing his eyes. "What's up, champ?" he asked, using his pet name for Alex since he was a toddler. I straightened up, too, sensing this was more than just his usual updates. "What's going on, Alex? You look like you've won the lottery or something." Alex's grin widened. "Better," he said. "I'm getting married." The room went silent. It was as if someone had sucked all the air out. "Married?" The kid was only 25, for heaven's sake. Mark and I exchanged a glance, both of us mirroring the other's shock. "Married?" I finally echoed, my voice higher than I intended. "To who? When did this happen?" "Yeah, mate," Mark chimed in, his tone laced with disbelief. "You've barely been dating anyone long enough to, get married." Alex, unfazed by our reaction, beckoned to the doorway. "Come in, Emily." That's when I saw her for the first time. Emily was pretty, no doubt, with a smile that could light up a room. But something about her didn't sit right with me. Maybe it was the way she looked at Alex, like he was a prize to be won. Mom, Dad, this is Emily. Alex introduced her, proud as a peacock. We're in love, and we've decided to get married. Nice to meet you. Emily chimed, her voice sweet, too sweet. I've heard so much about you both. Mark stood up, offering a hand. Well, this is a surprise. How long have you two been? 6 months, Emily answered, squeezing his hand gently. 6 months? I repeated, my mind racing. 6 months and now marriage? It didn't add up. Alex, can we talk? Not now, Mom. We're here to celebrate, he said, wrapping an arm around Emily. We're getting married, and that's final. I bit my tongue, wanting to protest, to scream that it was too fast, too reckless. But I held back. This was my son, and if he said he was happy, then who was I to argue? Okay, I said, forcing a smile. Let's sit down. You must tell us all about it. How did you two meet? As they recounted their story, something about a shared project at work leading to late-night dinners and weekend getaways, my mind wandered. It wasn't just the haste of the wedding that bothered me. It was Emily. She was too polished, her story too rehearsed. And then there was the timing. Just last month, we'd bought Alex a brand new car, a congratulatory gift for his promotion. And now, suddenly, he was getting married? The dinner went on, with Emily sharing more about her life, which, conveniently, didn't include any family of her own. I'm an orphan, she said at one point, a perfect touch of sadness in her voice. Alex and his family are all I have now. Mark and I nodded, offering sympathetic smiles, but alarm bells were ringing in my head. This felt off. Way off. After dinner, as Alex and Emily left, promising to keep us updated on the wedding plans, Mark turned to me, his expression grave. You think what I'm thinking? He asked. That this is a mistake? I replied. Absolutely. But how do we tell him? He's smitten. We need to talk some sense into him, Lena. This is moving too fast. It's not right. The weeks following Alex's bombshell announcement were a whirlwind of emotions and, frankly, a growing pile of doubts. Mark and I had hoped our initial shock would fade, that we'd get to know Emily, and all our worries would prove pointless. But that's not how it panned out. Not by a long shot. One evening, Mark and I were sitting at the kitchen table, papers spread out between us, bills, some of Alex's expense reports he'd asked me to look over because, well, old habits die hard. That's when it hit me. Mark, have you seen this? I asked, holding up a credit card statement that was higher than the Empire State. Since when does Alex spend like a man with a hole in his pocket? Mark leaned over, his brow furrowing as he scanned the numbers. What the hell is this? $5,000 at a fancy restaurant? And what's this, another 4 on jewelry? Since when does Alex buy jewelry? We knew we had to talk to Alex, get some straight answers. So, we invited him over for dinner, a casual affair, but with the intent to dig a little deeper. Emily, conveniently, had other plans. Alex, son, Mark began, passing him a beer and taking a seat across from him at the table, we've been going over some of your expenses. Mind explaining some of these charges? Alex took a sip, his face the picture of innocence. What charges? The $5,000 at La Table d'Or for starters, I chimed in, trying to keep my tone light, not wanting to sound like I was accusing him of anything. Oh, that. Alex laughed it off. That was for Emily's birthday. Wanted to do something special, you know? Special's one thing, but this? Mark gestured to the statement. This is nuts, Alex. And there's more. Jewelry, clothes, spa treatments. It's like you're bleeding money. Alex's demeanor shifted, a slight edge creeping into his voice. Look, I know it's a lot, but Emily's worth it. You'll see. Once we're married, things will settle down. But, Alex, I pressed, doesn't it seem a bit fast? You've only known her for 6 months. And all these expenses. It's not like you. He stood up then, frustration evident. I can't believe this. I thought you'd be happy for me. Emily makes me happy. Why can't you see that? We do, son, Mark said, standing to put a hand on his shoulder. We just want to make sure you're not getting taken advantage of. Alex shrugged off his hand. I'm not a kid, Dad. I know what I'm doing. With that, he grabbed his jacket and left, leaving us with more questions than answers. As we prepped for bed, thoughts of how to protect Alex swirled in my head. But then, another curveball hit us. Alex called, his voice a mix of excitement and nerves. Mom, Dad, Emily's pregnant. We need to speed up the wedding. That news hit like a freight train. Pregnant? Now? It explained the rush, but it piled on a ton more doubts. The wedding wasn't just fast-tracked, it was shot out of a cannon. Between the shock announcement and the big day, time seemed to warp. The preparations were a blur, each day melding into the next under the weight of organizing what was shaping up to be a lavish affair, thanks largely to Emily's modest wishes. One evening, as Mark and I reviewed the final guest list and the mountain of bills that had piled up, the reality of it all hit me like a ton of bricks. Mark, this is insane, I said, shaking my head in disbelief. We're bleeding money left and right. This wedding, it's like we're throwing a royal bash. Mark, ever the calm in my storm, sighed deeply. Lena, what can we do? Alex is dead set on this, and with the baby on the way. We've got to support him. Yeah, but at what cost? I snapped back, frustration boiling over. It's not just the money, Mark. It's this whole rush job. It doesn't sit right with me. Before we could spiral further into our debate, Alex called, excitement brimming in his voice. Hey, Mom, Dad, everything's set. This is going to be the best day ever. I forced a smile I hoped he could hear over the phone. That's great, honey. We're so happy for you. The day arrived in a whirlwind of activity. The venue was nothing short of breathtaking, a testament to Emily's taste for the finer things in life. As guests began to fill the seats, Mark and I took our place at the front, our smiles plastered on, ready to welcome the onslaught of well-wishers. Emily floated down the aisle like a vision, her dress a masterpiece of lace and sparkle. Alex looked on, awestruck, and for a moment, my heart softened. My son was happy, truly happy. Maybe I had been wrong about Emily. The ceremony was a blur of vows and tears, mostly from Emily's side, given she had no family present. The reception kicked off with the usual pomp, speeches dripping with sweetness, and a dance floor that beckoned even the most reluctant. As Mark and I made our rounds, greeting guests and sharing laughs, I caught snippets of conversations that set my teeth on edge. Did you hear? The whole thing's on the parents' dime, one distant cousin whispered, not so discreetly. Quite the fairy tale, huh? Wonder how long till the clock strikes midnight, another quipped, sipping on a cocktail that probably cost more than my first car. I brushed off the comments, focusing instead on making sure everyone enjoyed themselves. It was during one of these rounds that I overheard a conversation between Emily and a group of her friends, tucked away in a quieter corner of the venue. And then I told him, if we're going to do this, it's got to be big. Go big or go home, right? Emily was saying, her laughter light and carefree. One of her friends chimed in, Girl, you landed a gold mine. Play your cards right, and you're set for life. My heart sank. There it was, the confirmation of my worst fears, laid bare in a few careless sentences. I wanted to confront her then and there, demand she explain herself, but Mark caught my eye, shaking his head slightly. Not here. Not now. Post-wedding life settled into a rhythm of sorts, but not the kind you'd hope for. The bills kept coming, each one a stark reminder of the lavish affair that was Alex and Emily's wedding. But it wasn't just the wedding expenses that had me on edge, it was the continuous drain on the account we'd set up for them, supposedly for starting their life together. One evening, as Mark and I were going through our finances, I came across the latest statement for Alex and Emily's account. My heart sank as I scanned the list of transactions. "Mark, look at this," I said, my voice tight with frustration. "They're burning through money faster than we can count. Spas, designer boutiques, high-end restaurants. This isn't starting a life, it's living like there's no tomorrow." Mark took the statement, his brow furrowing as he read. "This is madness, Lena. We were supposed to help them get on their feet, not fund a never-ending honeymoon." Feeling a mix of anger and concern, I decided it was time for a heart-to-heart with Alex. I invited him over, making it clear it was a mother-son chat, no Emily. When Alex arrived, he looked happy but tired, the weight of his new life etching lines on his young face. "Alex, we need to talk about the spending," I started, not wanting to beat around the bush. "You and Emily are going through money like it's water. This isn't sustainable." Alex sighed, a defensive edge creeping into his voice. "Mom, we're just enjoying life. Emily's had it tough, you know that. I want to give her the world." "Enjoying life is one thing, Alex, but this is excessive. You're not just spending money, you're wasting it on things that don't matter. What about saving for the future? For the baby?" But before I could press further, Alex dropped a bombshell that shifted the ground beneath our feet. "Actually, Mom, about the baby," he trailed off, looking anywhere but at me. "Emily had a miscarriage." The words hit me like a physical blow. Not just the sadness of the loss, but the timing, the convenience of it all. "When? Why didn't you tell us sooner?" I asked, my suspicion struggling against my sympathy. "It happened a few weeks ago. Emily didn't want to make a big deal out of it. She's been struggling. Struggling or not, something didn't add up. The more I thought about it, the more the pieces refused to fit together. Determined to get to the bottom of it, I decided to pay a surprise visit to Alex and Emily's place the following week. What I found was a scene straight out of a luxury magazine shoot, not the home of a couple supposedly grieving and tightening their belts. The music was soft but upbeat, the apartment spotless and filled with new, expensive-looking furniture. It was Emily's voice that drew me in, floating from the bedroom where she was on a call, unaware of my presence. "Yeah, babe, don't worry. His folks are eating out of my hand. We'll have the rest of the money soon. This fool doesn't suspect a thing," she was saying, her tone light, almost giddy. My blood ran cold. His folks? This fool? Was she talking about Alex? About us? I stood there, frozen, as Emily laughed again, her words a knife twisting in my gut. "Just a little longer, and we'll be set for life. No need to rush the divorce. I'll milk this as long as I can." Rage and betrayal swirled inside me, a toxic mix that threatened to spill over. I wanted to storm in, confront her then and there, but something held me back. This needed to be handled carefully, strategically. I left as quietly as I had arrived, my mind racing with the implications of what I'd just heard. Mark needed to know, and we needed a plan. Emily was playing us, and it was time to turn the tables. After the revelation at Alex and Emily's, Mark and I knew it was time to get serious. We couldn't just sit back and watch as our son's life got dragged through the mud by someone who saw him as nothing more than a payday. So, we did the only thing that made sense at the time: we hired a private detective. The detective, a no-nonsense guy named Joe, came recommended by a friend of a friend who had been through something similar. He had a reputation for being discreet and getting results, which was exactly what we needed. Mark and I sat down with Joe in our living room, the air thick with tension and desperation. I kicked off the meeting, trying to keep my voice steady. "Joe, our son's wife, we believe she's not who she says she is." Joe nodded, jotting down notes in a small pad. "I see this more often than you'd think. What makes you suspect her?" Mark took over, detailing the extravagant spending, the suspicious behavior, and the overheard conversation that had set off alarm bells. "Understood," Joe said, closing his notebook. I'll start with the basics, dig into her past, and see who she's been associating with. It might take some time, but we'll get to the bottom of it. The investigation was slow, each day dragging by with no word from Joe. It was like waiting for a pot to boil, knowing that what we found might scald us. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Joe called, asking us to meet him at his office. First off, Joe began, his expression grim, "You were right to be suspicious. Emily's real name is Clara. Emily was an alias, and she's got a history of targeting wealthy men." My stomach twisted at his words, a mixture of vindication and heartbreak. "What about her accomplice?" I asked, dreading the answer. Joe slid a photo across the desk, showing Emily, Clara, with a man we'd never seen before. "This is her partner in crime, so to speak. Been working together for years. Seems your son was their latest mark." Mark's jaw clenched, his anger palpable. "Can we go to the police with this?" "It's enough to start," Joe confirmed. "But there's more. They were planning to clean out your son's accounts, then move on to the next target. There's a trail of victims." The room spun as the implications sank in. Our son, the latest in a line of men duped by a pair of professional con artists. It was almost too much to bear. When we arrived home, Alex was there, waiting for us. His face lit up when he saw us, unaware of the storm about to break. "Mom, Dad, what's up? Everything okay?" he asked, noticing our somber expressions. Mark and I exchanged a look, then, with a deep breath, I began the hardest conversation of my life. "Alex, we need to talk about Emily." As we laid everything out, the evidence, the photos, the lies, I watched my son's face go from confusion to disbelief to heartbreak. He was silent for a long time after we finished, the weight of the truth crushing him. Finally, he spoke, his voice cracked with emotion. "I can't believe it. I trusted her. Loved her." "We know, son," Mark said, putting a comforting hand on his shoulder. "But we're going to get through this. Together." The days after the truth came out were like walking through a storm. I went to the police, my heart heavy, but my resolve firm. The evidence we provided was more than enough. Emily, or Clara as we came to know her real name, was arrested along with her so-called accomplice. Watching them being taken away in handcuffs, I felt a mix of relief and sorrow. Relief that we had stopped them, and sorrow for what my son, Alex, was going through. The confrontation with Emily before her arrest was something out of a nightmare. She cried, pleaded with Alex, claiming her love for him was real, that I was trying to tear them apart. Her tears might have fooled him once, but not anymore. "Please, Alex, you have to believe me. I love you. Your mother, she's trying to get rid of me," she sobbed, clutching at his hands, desperate. Alex looked at her, his face hard and unreadable. "Love? You call this love? You've been lying to me since the day we met. There's no us, Emily. It's over." Her pleas fell on deaf ears. The betrayal was too deep, the lies too many. Alex filed for divorce, cutting whatever ties that bound him to the woman he thought he knew. The trial was a blur. Emily and her partner were found guilty, sentenced to a short but definite term behind bars. It was justice, but for Alex, it felt hollow. The woman he had loved, the life he thought they were building, it was all a lie. After the trial, our home was filled with a heavy silence. Alex was a shadow of himself, lost in the what-ifs and the betrayal. We tried to reach out, to help him through it, but the hurt was too deep. One evening, I found him sitting alone in the living room, staring at nothing. "Alex," I said gently, taking a seat beside him. "You know, it's okay to feel lost right now. What she did, it's unforgivable. But you're not alone. We're here for you." He nodded, his eyes moist. "I know, Mom. It's just hard. I thought I knew her. I thought what we had was real. It was real to you, and that's what counts. She made her choices, and now she's facing the consequences. But you have your whole life ahead of you. This is just a chapter, not the whole story. Alex leaned back, taking a deep breath. Yeah, I guess. It's just hard to see the road ahead right now. Take it one day at a time, I advised, squeezing his hand. And when you're ready, we'll be right here to help you rebuild, to find your path again. Mark joined us, wrapping an arm around Alex. That's right. We're family. We stick together, through thick and thin. Slowly, very slowly, Alex began to find his footing again. The pain and the betrayal didn't disappear overnight, but with each passing day, he started to look forward, to think about his future, not just the past he had lost. 2 years had passed since the trial and Emily's sentencing. Life was slowly finding its way back to some semblance of normalcy, or at least as normal as it could get after the storm we'd weathered. Alex was doing better, focusing on himself, even starting to talk about going back to college. It was a slow healing process, but he was getting there, with us by his side every step of the way. Then, out of the blue, the phone rang one evening. I answered, not expecting anything out of the ordinary. Hello? Is this Mrs. Lena Thompson? The voice was hesitant, almost timid. Yes, it is. Who's calling? I asked, a sense of unease starting to curl in my stomach. It's Emily. I mean, Clara. My heart skipped a beat. After everything that had happened, hearing her voice was the last thing I expected. What do you want? My voice was cold, harder than I intended. I'm in trouble. I need help. I have nowhere else to turn, she said, desperation seeping through her words. And you thought to call here? After everything you've done? I couldn't keep the disbelief out of my voice. I know I have no right to ask, but I'm alone, and I'm pregnant. For real, this time. The news hit me like a punch. Pregnant. The audacity of her calling us, after the lies and the pain she caused, was astounding. Listen, Clara. You made your choices. You have to live with them. As for your situation, I suggest you find help elsewhere. There are places, agencies that can offer assistance. But I thought maybe, after everything, there could be a chance for forgiveness. I really did love Alex, you know. I sighed, a mix of anger and pity washing over me. Forgiveness isn't mine to give. And as for Alex, you lost the right to even mention his name. You need to move on, Clara. Find help, but don't call here again. There was silence on the line, heavy and thick. Then, a quiet, I understand. I'm sorry. And she hung up. When I told Mark and Alex about the call later, Alex's reaction was one of quiet contemplation. I hope she finds the help she needs, he said, and that was all. No anger, no bitterness. Just a hope for a better path for someone who had caused us so much pain. It was a testament to how far he had come, how much he had grown. And in that moment, I knew that we were going to be okay. Life would move on, and we would grow stronger from the trials we faced. Growing up poor ain't easy, let me tell you. But despite the odds stacked against me, there was one thing I had going for me, my knack for drawing. It was my escape, my way of dreaming bigger than our small town. But without money for art classes, my talent was like a bird with clipped wings, grounded, unable to soar. Then one day, Mr. Thompson, my school teacher, saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. He encouraged me to enter competitions, to take part in special programs at the university. And when I hesitated, unsure if I belonged, he pushed me forward, his belief in me like a beacon of light cutting through the darkness. I'll never forget the day I received that letter in the mail, the one that changed everything. It was a scholarship, a golden ticket to a world I never thought I'd be a part of. I couldn't believe it, me, a poor kid from a small town, given the chance to pursue my dreams. University was a whirlwind of new experiences and opportunities. I threw myself into my studies, soaking up every ounce of knowledge like a sponge. And when I graduated top of my class, it felt like a victory not just for me, but for everyone who had ever believed in me. But as I stepped out into the real world, diploma in hand, I quickly realized that the journey was far from over. Landing a job at a design agency was just the beginning, the first step on a long and challenging road ahead. The pay was modest, barely enough to make ends meet, but I didn't care. I was doing what I loved, and that was all that mattered. I threw myself into my work, pouring my heart and soul into every project that came my way. And that's where I met Tom, my future hubby. I remember the first time I met Tom like it was yesterday. He waltzed into the design agency like he owned the place, flashing his charming smile. I couldn't help but be drawn to him, despite my best efforts to keep it professional. "Sarah, meet Tom." My boss introduced us. Tom grinned, extending his hand. "Pleasure to meet you, Sarah. I've heard great things about your work." I shook his hand, feeling a warmth spread through me. "Likewise, Tom. What brings you in today?" He leaned against the desk, all smooth moves and confident swagger. "I'm looking to spruce up my place a bit. Heard you're the best in town." I chuckled, feeling a blush creep up my cheeks. "Well, I'll do my best to live up to the hype." And so, our journey began. We spent hours poring over design plans, bouncing ideas off each other like old friends. It didn't take long for sparks to fly, and before we knew it, we were planning a future together. "I never thought I'd find someone like you," Tom confessed one evening over dinner. I smiled, feeling my heart swell with affection. "Me neither, but I'm glad I did. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. And boy, did we get a doozy. I think we should have a baby," Tom announced one night, catching me off guard. I nearly choked on my wine, coughing as I tried to process his words. "A baby? But we've barely settled into married life." Tom frowned, his brow furrowing in frustration. "Sarah, I'm not getting any younger. I want to start a family before it's too late." I sighed, feeling torn between my dreams and his desires. "I just don't know if I'm ready, Tom. My career." He cut me off, his voice sharp with impatience. "Your career can wait. This is more important." And just like that, I found myself agreeing to something I wasn't sure I wanted. But love makes you do crazy things, doesn't it? So, we started trying for a baby, our excitement overshadowed by the pressure to conceive. Months passed, and still, nothing. Each negative pregnancy test felt like a punch to the gut, and I could see the disappointment in Tom's eyes. "We'll keep trying," he reassured me, but I could hear the frustration in his voice. And then, finally, our prayers were answered. I'll never forget the moment I saw those two pink lines, the rush of joy and relief washing over me. "We did it, Sarah," Tom whispered, pulling me into a tight embrace. Tears filled my eyes as I buried my face in his chest, overcome with emotion. "We did." Nothing can prepare you for the gut punch of hearing your child's diagnosis. We were over the moon when our baby arrived, but our joy turned to shock when the doctor uttered those dreaded words, cerebral palsy. Tom's face went white as a sheet, his hand gripping mine like a vice. "Cerebral what?" he croaked out, his voice barely above a whisper. The doctor's explanation was a blur of medical jargon, but the gravity of the situation hit me like a ton of bricks. My mind raced with questions, fears gnawing at my insides like hungry wolves. "What does this mean for our baby?" I asked, my voice trembling with fear. The doctor's response was like a punch to the gut. "It means your child will face challenges with movement and coordination," he explained, his tone grave. As we got home, the weight of our new reality settled in like a heavy fog. Tom's frustration boiled over, his temper flaring like a wildfire. "This ain't right," he muttered under his breath, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. I felt a surge of anger bubbling up inside me, threatening to spill over. "What do you mean it ain't right?" I shot back, my voice sharp with irritation. He turned to me, his eyes blazing with intensity. "You must have done something to cause this," he accused, his tone sharp like broken glass. My blood boiled at his words, a fierce wave of anger washing over me. "How dare you?" I snapped, my voice rising with each word. "This isn't my fault, Tom. This isn't anyone's fault." But he wouldn't back down, his accusations like a relentless onslaught. "I can't believe you're denying it," he spat, his eyes blazing with fury. I watched Tom, feeling a mixture of anger and sadness swirling inside me like a storm. "Tom, we need to stay strong for our son," I said, trying to reach him through the haze of his emotions. But he shook his head, his eyes clouded with frustration. "I can't do this, Sarah. I just can't," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. And then, as if on cue, his mother burst into the room, her eyes ablaze with fury. "What's going on here?" she demanded, her voice sharp like a whip crack. I felt a lump form in my throat, the weight of her presence like a lead weight pressing down on me. "Our son has been diagnosed with cerebral palsy," I said, my voice barely audible over the roar of my own heartbeat. Her reaction was immediate, her face turning red with rage. "This is all your fault," she spat, her words like venom dripping from her tongue. I felt a surge of anger rising up inside me, hot and fierce. "How dare you?" I snapped, my voice filled with righteous indignation. But she wasn't done. "You brought shame upon our family," she continued, her words like a slap in the face. I wanted to scream, to lash out at her with all the fury burning inside me. But instead, I held my tongue, knowing that nothing I said would change her mind. And as Tom stormed out of the room, his mother hot on his heels, I was left alone with my thoughts. But even in the midst of the chaos, I knew one thing for certain: I would do whatever it took to give my son the love and support he needed to thrive, even if it meant facing the challenges ahead alone. But then, things took a turn for the worse. Tom demanded a paternity test, convinced that our son wasn't his. And when the results came back confirming his paternity, he turned his back on us. "I want out," he declared, his words like a dagger to the heart. "I will pay you alimony." I was blindsided, my world crumbling around me like a house of cards. But even in the midst of my pain, I refused to let him take everything from me. "I don't need your damn alimony," I spat back, my pride refusing to let me accept his pity. And so, I packed up our things and left, determined to make a life for myself and my son, even if it meant doing it alone. And let me tell you, it wasn't easy. But despite the overwhelming odds stacked against me, I refused to give up. I was a fighter, a survivor, and I would do whatever it took to give my son the life he deserved. I reached out to anyone and everyone who could offer support, from friends to family to complete strangers on the internet. And slowly but surely, I began to build a network of people who understood what I was going through, who could offer advice and a shoulder to lean on when the going got tough. The online support groups became my lifeline, a safe space where I could share my fears and frustrations without fear of judgment. And as I scrolled through the endless stream of messages and comments, I realized that I wasn't alone, far from it. "Hey Sarah, how you holding up?" one message read, the sender's username a jumble of letters and numbers. I smiled, grateful for the virtual hug. "Taking it one day at a time," I replied, my fingers flying across the keyboard. And as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, I found myself forging real connections with people who understood what it meant to walk in my shoes. We swapped stories and tips, commiserated over sleepless nights and missed milestones, and celebrated every victory, no matter how small. But it wasn't just the online community that offered support. Friends and family rallied around me, offering a helping hand and a sympathetic ear whenever I needed it most. "Sarah, we're here for you, no matter what," my best friend declared, her voice fierce with determination. I felt a lump form in my throat, touched by her unwavering loyalty. "Thanks, Jen. I don't know what I'd do without you," I said, my voice choked with emotion. And as I navigated the ups and downs of single parenthood, I realized that building a support network wasn't just about finding people who could help me. It was about finding people who could lift me up when I felt like I was drowning, who could remind me that I was strong enough to weather any storm. Life threw us more curveballs than a pitcher on a bad day, but we weren't about to strike out. No way. We were fighters, me and my son, and we were gonna show the world what we were made of. Sure, there were days when it felt like the weight of the world was bearing down on my shoulders, when the challenges of single parenthood threatened to overwhelm me. But I refused to let the darkness win. I had a son to raise, a life to live, and I wasn't about to let anyone or anything stand in my way. I threw myself into my work, pouring every ounce of my energy into my passion for design. And let me tell you, it paid off. I landed big projects, made a name for myself in the industry, and proved to everyone who doubted me that I was a force to be reckoned with. But it wasn't just about my career. I was determined to give my son the best possible life, to ensure that he had every opportunity to thrive, despite the challenges he faced. So, I researched therapies, attended seminars, and sought out experts who could help him reach his full potential. And let me tell you, it wasn't easy. There were setbacks, plenty of them. But each time we fell, we picked ourselves back up, dusted ourselves off, and kept on pushing forward. Because that's what we did, we persevered, no matter what. "Mom, I did it!" my son exclaimed, his face lit up with excitement as he took his first steps with the help of his walker. I felt tears spring to my eyes, pride swelling in my chest like a balloon ready to burst. "That's my boy," I said, my voice choked with emotion. And as I watched him navigate the world with a determination that belied his tender years, I knew that we were unstoppable. Together, we were a force to be reckoned with, capable of overcoming any obstacle that stood in our way. But it wasn't just about proving the doubters wrong, it was about showing my son that anything was possible, that he was capable of achieving greatness, no matter what obstacles lay in his path. Years had drifted by like leaves in the wind since Tom had abandoned us, leaving me to pick up the pieces of our shattered life. In those years, he'd made no effort to be a father to our child, no phone calls, no visits, nothing. But just when I thought I'd heard the last of him, he came crashing back into my life like a wrecking ball. It was a regular Tuesday afternoon when the phone rang, disrupting the peace of our little home. I answered, expecting it to be a telemarketer or a wrong number. But the voice on the other end sent chills down my spine. It was Tom. "Sarah, it's me," he said, his voice heavy with urgency. I rolled my eyes, barely able to contain my frustration. "What do you want, Tom?" I snapped, my patience wearing thin. He wasted no time getting to the point. "I'm in the hospital. I broke my spine skiing," he said, his words like a slap in the face. I felt a surge of anger rising up inside me, hot and fierce. "And why should I care?" I demanded, my voice dripping with sarcasm. But he wasn't deterred. "Because I need your help, Sarah. I can't take care of myself," he admitted, his voice tinged with desperation. I scoffed, shaking my head in disbelief. "You expect me to drop everything and come running to your rescue? After everything you've done?" I spat, my words like venom. But he wasn't about to take no for an answer. "You owe me, Sarah. I'm the father of your child," he insisted, his tone growing more aggressive by the second. I felt my blood boil, fury coursing through my veins like wildfire. "I owe you nothing," I declared, my voice cold and unwavering. With that, I hung up the phone, refusing to let him guilt-trip me into helping him. I had spent years rebuilding my life from the ground up, and I wasn't about to let him tear it down again. But even as I tried to push him out of my mind, his words lingered like a dark cloud, casting a shadow over my thoughts. Was I really heartless for refusing to help him? Was I a bad person for turning my back on the father of my child? I pushed aside the doubts gnawing at my conscience, reminding myself that I had done everything in my power to make things work, to give him a chance to be a part of our son's life. But he had chosen to walk away, leaving me to pick up the pieces on my own. And so, with a heavy heart and a sense of resolve, I turned my focus back to the things that mattered, my son, my work, and the life that I had fought so hard to build. Tom may have been a part of our past, but he had no place in our future. After Tom, I swore I was done with love. I'd been burned once, and I wasn't about to let it happen again. But life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. I met Jake at a design conference, a charming architect with a smile that could light up a room. He was confident, funny, and had a way of making me feel like I was the only woman in the world. "Hey there, gorgeous. Mind if I buy you a drink?" he said, sauntering over with a grin on his face. I raised an eyebrow, amused by his boldness. "Depends. Are you planning on spiking it with something?" I replied, my lips curling into a smirk. He laughed, undeterred by my sarcasm. "Only if you're into that sort of thing," he joked, his eyes twinkling with mischief. We spent the rest of the evening talking and laughing like old friends, trading stories, and sharing our dreams for the future. And as the night wore on, I found myself drawn to him in a way I hadn't felt in years. "So, Sarah, what do you say? Want to grab dinner with me tomorrow night?" he asked, his voice soft and earnest. I hesitated, unsure if I was ready to take that leap again. But there was something about Jake, something that made me want to take a chance. "Sure, why not?" I said, a smile tugging at the corners of my lips. And so, our first date turned into a second, and a third, until I found myself falling for him faster than I ever thought possible. He was patient and kind, always there to lend a listening ear or a comforting hug when I needed it most. But it wasn't just about the romance, it was about the connection we shared, the way he understood me in a way that no one else ever had. He didn't judge me for my past or my mistakes, he accepted me for who I was, flaws and all. He also accepted my son. "Sarah, I have something to ask you," Jake said one evening, his voice nervous, but determined. I felt my heart skip a beat, anticipation coursing through my veins. "What is it?" I asked, my pulse racing with excitement. He took a deep breath, his eyes locking with mine. "Will you marry me?" he asked, holding out a small velvet box. I felt tears prickling at the corners of my eyes, overwhelmed by the love and emotion flooding my heart. "Yes, Jake. Yes, I will," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. And as he slipped the ring onto my finger, I knew that I had found my happily ever after, not in spite of my past, but because of it. As the sun rose on a crisp morning, I couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation bubbling up inside me. Today was the start of a new chapter in my life, a chance to leave the past behind and embrace the future with open arms. I glanced over at Jake, who was still sound asleep beside me, his face peaceful and serene. He had been my rock, my anchor in the storm, and I couldn't wait to begin this next adventure with him by my side. "Hey, sleepyhead. Time to wake up," I said, gently nudging him awake. He groaned, blinking blearily as he stretched his arms above his head. "What time is it?" he mumbled, his voice thick with sleep. I checked the clock on the nightstand. "It's almost time to get moving. We've got a big day ahead of us," I replied, excitement bubbling up inside me like a pot about to boil over. He grinned, his eyes lighting up with anticipation. "I can't wait. This is gonna be the best day ever," he said, his voice filled with enthusiasm. And so, we got up and got dressed, our hearts pounding with excitement as we prepared to embark on this new journey together. We had spent months planning and preparing, and now the moment had finally arrived, the moment when we would open the doors to our very own design studio. As we stepped outside, the crisp morning air filled our lungs, invigorating us with a sense of purpose and determination. We made our way to the studio, hand in hand, each step bringing us closer to our dreams. And when we finally arrived, it felt like coming home. The space was filled with light and warmth, a blank canvas just waiting to be filled with our creativity and passion. "This is it, Sarah. Our own little slice of heaven," Jake said, his voice filled with awe. I smiled, feeling a sense of pride swell in my chest. "It's perfect," I replied, my voice tinged with emotion. And as we set to work, sketching out plans and brainstorming ideas, I couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement building inside me. This was just the beginning, the start of something incredible that would change our lives forever. Hours flew by in a blur as we poured our hearts and souls into our work, each stroke of the pen bringing us one step closer to our vision. And when we finally stepped back to admire our handiwork, I knew that we had created something truly special. "This is amazing, Sarah. I couldn't have done it without you," Jake said, his voice filled with admiration. I grinned, feeling a sense of satisfaction wash over me. "And I couldn't have done it without you," I replied, reaching out to squeeze his hand. Together, we stood side by side, gazing out at our creation with a sense of pride and accomplishment. This was more than just a design studio, it was a testament to our love, our resilience, and our unwavering belief in each other. I had moved on from my past, focusing on building my future with my son and new husband and pouring my energy into our thriving design studio. Days were filled with creativity, nights with laughter, and I hardly spared a thought for my ex-husband, buried as he was in the recesses of my memory. But life has a cruel sense of timing. Just when I thought I had left him and his demands behind, a notification arrived: my ex-husband had filed a lawsuit, demanding alimony. The news hit me like a sucker punch to the gut. How could he come crawling back now, after all these years? But there was no time to dwell on it. The courtroom awaited, and I was ready to face him head-on. The courtroom buzzed with tension as we awaited the judge's verdict. My heart pounded in my chest as I glanced over at my ex-husband, sitting in his wheelchair with a scowl etched across his face. Beside him sat his mother, her eyes filled with contempt as they bore into me. "So, you think you're gonna get away with this, huh?" my ex-husband sneered, his voice dripping with bitterness. I clenched my fists, trying to keep my temper in check. "I'm not trying to get away with anything. I'm just standing up for what's right," I shot back, my voice firm and unwavering. He scoffed, shaking his head in disbelief. "You're just a greedy silly who's trying to screw me over," he spat, his words like daggers aimed at my heart. I felt a surge of anger rising up inside me, threatening to consume me whole. "I'm not the one who abandoned our child," I retorted, my voice trembling with rage. His mother chimed in, her voice laced with venom. "You should be grateful that he even gave you the time of day. You're lucky he didn't leave you sooner," she sneered, her words like a slap in the face. I gritted my teeth, struggling to keep my composure. "You both abandoned our child when he needed you the most. You don't get to play the victim now," I declared, my voice ringing out with conviction. But they weren't about to back down. They continued to hurl insults and accusations, trying to twist the truth to suit their own agenda. But I stood my ground, refusing to be intimidated by their bullying tactics. And when the judge finally delivered his verdict, ruling in my favor and denying my ex-husband's claim for alimony, I felt a sense of vindication wash over me. I may have lost a battle once, but I had won the war. As we left the courtroom, Jake by my side, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in how far I had come. I had faced adversity head-on, and I had come out stronger and more resilient than ever before. And as we walked hand in hand into the bright future that lay ahead, I knew that no matter what challenges we faced, we would face them together, united in love, and unstoppable in our determination to build a better life for ourselves and our family. Hey there, I'm Linda. If you'd see me walking down Main Street, you might think, now there's a lady who's got her life together. And yeah, at 55, with my own business and a home that could grace the cover of Garden Beautiful, it sure looks that way. But let me tell you, it wasn't always sunshine and roses. This whole saga kicked off about 25 years back. I was 30, fresh off the loss of my folks. They were good people, loved me to bits, being their only kid and all. They left me the family farm and our old house. A sweet deal for some, but for me, it was a mix of a blessing and a curse. One day, I was out in the fields, checking on the crops, when Mike, my neighbor, hopped over the fence. Mike was as rugged as they come, with hands that told tales of hard work and a smile that could light up the darkest days. "Hey, Linda. You plan on running this place all by yourself?" he called out, wiping the sweat off his brow with the back of his hand. I shrugged, trying to look more confident than I felt. Guess I have to, don't I? Can't let this all go to waste. Mike leaned on the fence, his eyes scanning the horizon. Your folks did a hell of a job with this land. You need a hand, you know where to find me. Thanks, Mike. I might just take you up on that, I replied, offering him a smile. That was the thing about our little community, we had each other's backs. But deep down, I knew if I was going to keep this farm afloat, I needed more than casual help. I needed a partner, in every sense of the word. Enter Michael, or as I liked to call him, my saving grace. He was a city boy, looking for a slice of country life, and boy, did we hit it off. One minute we were talking crop rotations, and the next, we were planning our life together. One evening, after a long day's work, we sat on the porch, our hands intertwined, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Linda, this place, it's got potential. With a bit of elbow grease, we could really make something of it, Michael mused, his voice full of hope. I leaned my head on his shoulder. I know. It's just daunting, you know? It's not just a farm, it's my legacy. He turned to me, his gaze serious. And it's our future. I'm in this with you, every step of the way. That's how our journey began. Together, we poured our hearts and souls into the farm. It wasn't easy, far from it. Life on the farm with Michael was like riding a roller coaster without any brakes, thrilling, terrifying, and utterly unpredictable. Then David came along, and suddenly, the stakes were higher than ever. He was our little miracle, the kind of baby that could make the hardest farmer melt into a puddle of goo with just one toothless grin. Michael was over the moon, but he was also practical to a fault. One night, a few weeks after David's arrival, we were sitting in the dim light of our living room, the baby finally asleep after what felt like an eternity of fussing. Linda, you're spoiling the boy, Michael began, his voice low, trying not to wake David. He needs to learn the value of hard work, just like we did. I'd brush off his comments, too caught up in the love I had for our son. He's just a child, Michael. There's plenty of time for all that. But Michael was right. In my desire to give David everything, I might have given him too much of the wrong thing. It was a lesson I'd learned the hard way, but back then, I was too blinded by love to see it. Those early days turned into months, and months into years. David grew like a weed, and with every inch, he seemed to gain a new spark of curiosity about the farm. Michael was in his element, teaching David how to care for the animals and the crops. I watched them, my heart full, even as a small part of me worried we were setting him up for a life of hard labor. Mom, look! David would shout, running towards me with a new discovery, a frog or a particularly shiny rock. His eyes were always so full of wonder, it was contagious. I see, honey. That's amazing. I'd respond, matching his excitement, even when I was dead on my feet from the day's work. But it wasn't all sunshine and play. The farm demanded a lot from all of us, and there were days when the tension ran high. Michael and I would sometimes clash over the smallest things, the stress of the harvest or a sick animal turning into a much bigger argument. David's laughter became the soundtrack of our lives, a constant reminder of what we were working so hard for. And even on the toughest days, when the crops were failing or the bills were piling up, one look at our son's smiling face was all it took to remind us why it was all worth it. Then, tragedy struck. Michael fell ill, and despite a fierce battle, we lost him. It gutted me. I tried to keep things together, but grief has a way of eating at you, and I found comfort in food more than I should have. I was a shadow of my former self, lost in sorrow and stress-eating my way through the days. When David came back home, fresh out of college, he didn't come alone. He brought his wife, Liz, who carried herself with an air that said she'd rather be anywhere but here. The moment they stepped through the door, I could feel the judgment hanging in the air, thick and suffocating. David didn't waste any time. Mom, what's happened to you? This isn't okay. You've let yourself go. His words stung, a harsh reminder of how far I'd fallen. I wanted to lash out, to tell him he had no idea what I'd been through, but the look of disappointment in his eyes silenced me. Liz's gaze was even worse, full of disdain as she scanned the room, her nose wrinkled as if she'd smelled something foul. "We're actually going to live here," she whispered to David, loud enough for me to hear. Despite everything, they agreed to stay. "But things are going to change around here," David declared, a tone in his voice that brooked no argument. In my heartache and loneliness, I clung to the hope that having my son home would help heal the gaping wound left by Michael's passing. So, when David suggested he take over the legal management of the farm, I didn't hesitate. "If you think that's best," I murmured, signing over the rights with a shaky hand, unaware of the consequences this decision would bring. Life took on a new kind of normal, one where I felt more like an outsider than the matriarch of the home I'd built with Michael. David and Liz made changes, big and small, and with each new decision, I felt my connection to the farm slipping away. The final blow came one quiet evening, as I overheard David and Liz talking in the living room. "We need to make some real changes around here, Liz. It's time to think about our future, not just cling to the past," David said, his voice firm. Liz's reply was cold, calculated. "Exactly. Your mother had her time. Now, it's our turn. We need to think about what's best for us." The days rolled into one another, each feeling heavier than the last. My home, once a sanctuary of love and laughter, had turned into a battleground. David and Liz's disdain was a constant shadow, chilling the very air I breathed. One afternoon, I was tending to the garden, my hands deep in the earth, trying to find some solace in the familiar feel of soil, when David stormed out. "Mom, we need to talk," he said, his voice tight with frustration. I straightened up, wiping the dirt on my jeans, bracing myself. "What's it now, David?" "It's about the farm, and your habits. Liz and I have been talking. We think it's time for some changes," he said, avoiding my gaze. I felt a flash of anger. "My habits? You mean the way I run the farm? The farm that's been in our family for generations?" David shifted uncomfortably. "Yeah, that. And, well, Liz thinks, we think you could take better care of yourself. For your health." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So, this is about my weight now? Is that it?" "It's not just that, Mom. It's everything. You've let yourself go. And the farm, it's not being managed right. We're losing money," David shot back, his patience thinning. The accusation stung. I had poured my heart and soul into this land, even more so after losing Michael. To hear my own son dismiss it all so casually was a knife to my heart. "And what do you plan to do about it, David? Take over completely? Push me out?" My voice was sharp, laced with hurt and anger. David sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know, Mom. But something's gotta give. We can't go on like this." As he walked away, I felt a profound sense of isolation. My son, my flesh and blood, was turning against me, blinded by his wife's contempt and his own ambition. A few days later, Liz cornered me in the kitchen. Her usual disdain was replaced with a cold, calculated look. "You know, you could try a little harder, Linda. Make yourself useful. Maybe get a job, help out more around the house," she said, her words like ice. I clenched my fists, struggling to keep my composure. "I've done nothing but work my entire life, Liz. For this family, for this farm. And I don't need you to tell me about being useful." Liz laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. "Useful? Please. You're dead weight around here. David and I are the future of this farm. You're just in the way." Her words ignited something within me, a fiery mix of rage and determination. "This farm is my life, Liz. I won't be pushed aside, not by you or anyone else." She smirked, clearly amused by my defiance. "We'll see about that, Linda. We'll see." As she sauntered out of the kitchen, I was left with a swirling mix of emotions. Fear, anger, but above all, a steely resolve. David and Liz might think they could break me, push me out of my own home, but I was made of sterner stuff. I realized then that this was more than just a fight for the farm. It was a fight for my dignity, for my place in the world. I wasn't going to let them win. Not without a fight. The betrayal cut deep, but it also woke a sleeping giant within me. My love for David was unwavering, but I knew that love could be tough, it could demand standing up for oneself. I had lost my way, drowned in grief and self-pity, but no more. Things at home had gone from bad to unbearable. Liz, my daughter-in-law, wouldn't lift a finger to help around the house. Cooking, cleaning, it all fell on me. But it wasn't just the extra chores that wore me down, it was her words, sharp as thorns, always ready to cut. You know, you smell like the barn, right? And your clothes, it's like you roll in manure for fun, Liz sneered one day as I was preparing dinner, her nose wrinkled in disgust. I tried to brush it off, keep the peace for David's sake. Well, it's a farm. It comes with the territory. She laughed, a harsh, grating sound that made my skin crawl. Maybe get a manicure sometime, huh? Try not to look so hillbilly. I felt a lump in my throat, the loneliness and unhappiness pressing down on me. This wasn't the family life I'd imagined. Things escalated when I mentioned a dentist appointment I had coming up. David, my own son, blew up. You're just another bill, you know that? Everything about you is just more money down the drain. His words stung, a betrayal that cut deeper than any of Liz's jabs. My home, my sanctuary, had become a prison. I remembered Michael's warnings about spoiling David, how I brushed them off. Now, those memories haunted me, a bitter reminder of my mistakes. Then, the final blow came. David, with that cold, determined look in his eyes, announced, "We're selling the farm. Moving to the city. It's all set, buyers lined up and everything." Panic gripped me. And what about me? What happens to me? Liz's laugh, cruel and mocking, was the only response. "Oh, you think you're coming with us? Dream on. You can stay here. Maybe someone will take pity on you." Their words echoed in the empty house, a stark reminder of how alone I was. My family, my home, my whole life, it was all slipping away. But something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to let them erase me, not without a fight. My voice, steady despite the turmoil inside, challenged them. "You think you can just throw me out, just like that? This is my home too, and I won't go down without a fight." David's face hardened. "You don't have a say in this anymore. We've made our decision." I stood my ground, my resolve hardening. "We'll see about that. I'm not as helpless as you think." As they walked away, leaving me in the silence of my betrayal, I knew this was more than just a fight for a piece of land. It was a fight for my dignity, my legacy, and my rights. I might have been down, but I wasn't out. Not by a long shot. After the shock wore off, anger and determination took its place. I wasn't about to let my son and his wife bulldoze over me. I knew I needed help, someone who knew the ins and outs of the law. That's when I thought of Tom, a lawyer friend of Michael's. I hadn't spoken to him in years, but desperate times called for desperate measures. I picked up the phone, my hands shaking slightly. "Tom, it's Linda. I need your help." Tom's voice was a balm, calm and steady. "Linda, it's been ages. What's going on?" I poured out the story, the pain and betrayal, coloring every word. Tom listened quietly, only interrupting to ask for clarifications. When I finished, there was a heavy silence. "Linda, I'm sorry you're going through this. But I think you've got a strong case. Let's meet tomorrow, go over everything. We'll find a way to fight this." Hanging up, I felt the first glimmer of hope in what felt like forever. The meeting with Tom was a revelation. He dug through the deeds, the wills, and all the legal documents my husband had left behind. Michael was a smart man, Tom said, pointing to a clause in the documents. He made sure you'd always have a say in what happens to the farm. Your son can't sell it without your consent. Armed with this knowledge, I confronted David and Liz. They were in the living room, going over plans, their dreams of the city life spread out on the coffee table. I spoke to a lawyer, I said, my voice stronger than it had been in days. David looked up, annoyance flashing in his eyes. And what? You're going to sue your own son? If I have to, I shot back, the documents clutched in my hand like a shield. Did you know your father made sure I'd always have a say in the farm? You can't sell it without my consent. Liz laughed, but there was a hint of nervousness in it now. She's bluffing. But I laid the documents on the table. I'm not bluffing. This is the truth. You want to fight this? Go ahead. But you're not going to win. The change in them was immediate. The confidence, the smugness, it all evaporated, replaced by uncertainty and fear. The revelation hit David like a physical blow. His anger turned to fury, a venomous look directed at me. So, this is how it is? You'd rather see us ruined than help your own son? It's not about ruining anyone. It's about protecting what's mine. What your father and I worked for, I replied, my resolve firm. David's fury boiled over. All you care about is this farm. Not me, not us. You know what? We don't need you. We don't need any of this. Liz joined in, her words laced with venom. Yeah, we thought we could use the money, but if this is how it's going to be, forget it. We're better off without you. Their insult stung, a bitter pill to swallow. But as they stormed out, leaving me standing alone but resolute, a weight lifted off my shoulders. The realization hit hard, David's love had been conditional, tied to what he could gain from me. The house was silent after they left, a stark contrast to the chaos of the confrontation. But in that silence, I found strength. I had stood up for myself, for Michael's legacy, and though the future was uncertain, I felt a sense of peace. With David and Liz gone, the silence of the farm wasn't as oppressive as I feared, it felt like a clean slate. The first few weeks were tough, not gonna lie. Waking up to the vast, empty house felt eerie, but also sparked something in me I hadn't felt in years, freedom. I started with the garden, Michael's favorite spot. It was overgrown, a wild tangle of weeds and memories. As I dug into the earth, clearing away the neglect, I felt closer to him than I had in a long time. Tom dropped by one afternoon, a surprise visit. He found me in the midst of my gardening, hands dirty, hair a mess. Making progress, I see, he said, a warm smile on his face. I stood up, brushing the dirt off my jeans. Trying to. It's good to see you, Tom. Wasn't expecting company. He helped me up, his hand steady. I figured you might need some cheering up. Plus, I wanted to see how you're holding up. We walked around the farm, Tom listening as I shared my plans, my hopes for the future. It was easy talking to him, easier than I expected. He had this way of making me feel heard, understood. Linda, you're doing an amazing job. Michael would be proud, Tom said, his gaze meeting mine. Something fluttered in my chest at those words, at the look in his eyes. Thanks, Tom. It means a lot, coming from you. As the days turned into weeks, Tom became a regular fixture around the farm. His visits weren't just about checking in, he started lending a hand, fixing up the barn, helping with the crops. We fell into an easy rhythm, working side by side, sharing meals, and more laughs than I'd had in years. One evening, as we sat on the porch, watching the sunset, Tom turned to me, his expression serious. Linda, I've been meaning to tell you something. I felt my heartbeat quicken, a mix of anticipation and nerves. What's that? I've grown quite fond of you. More than just a friend. I know it's been a tough year for you, but I was hoping, maybe, you'd feel the same, he said, his voice steady but his eyes searching mine for a reaction. I was speechless, a whirlwind of emotions tumbling inside me. The thought of opening my heart again, after everything, scared me. But looking at Tom, feeling the warmth of his hand in mine, I realized I didn't want to face the days ahead without him. Tom, I started, my voice barely a whisper. I think I feel the same. His smile then, it was like a new beginning, a promise of better days to come. We leaned in, the kiss soft and tentative at first, but it quickly deepened, filled with all the unsaid words, the shared sorrows, and the budding hope for the future. Life on the farm changed after that. It wasn't just about rebuilding anymore, it was about creating something new, something ours. Tom moved in, and together, we started planning. Not just for the farm, but for us. Rebuilding the farm, finding love again with Tom, it wasn't something I expected. Life had a funny way of surprising you, of turning the tides when you least expected it. And as I looked around at the land Michael and I had loved, now being loved anew, I knew I was right where I was supposed to be. Life had settled into a comfortable rhythm with Tom, whose grown children treated me with nothing but kindness and respect. It was a stark contrast to the turbulent relationship I had with my own son, David, and his wife, Liz. One afternoon, as I was tending to the flowers that Tom and I had planted together, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Liz's number, a name I hadn't seen on my screen for months. Hesitantly, I answered. "Linda, it's Liz. Listen, we need your help," she blurted out, skipping any pretense of pleasantries. I took a deep breath, bracing myself. "What's wrong?" "It's David. He's in trouble, big trouble. He's being charged with fraud. We need money for a good lawyer." Her voice was desperate, but I detected an underlying expectation, as if my agreement was a foregone conclusion. The news hit me hard, not because of the charges, somehow, I wasn't surprised, but because they had the audacity to ask for my help after everything. "Liz, I can't. David needs to take responsibility for his actions. I won't bail him out." There was a pause on the line, and then Liz's voice turned cold, venomous. "I should have known. He was right about you, always so stupid and narrow-minded. You never cared about us, only about yourself." Her words stung, but my resolve didn't waver. "Liz, that's enough. I've done all I can for you too. It's time for David to face the consequences of his actions." Without waiting for her response, I ended the call, my hand shaking slightly as I placed the phone back on the table. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the weight of 1,000 unspoken words and what-ifs. Tom found me on the porch later, the sunset casting long shadows over the yard. He sat beside me, his presence a comforting warmth. "Everything all right?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. I sighed, leaning into him. "It's David. He's in trouble again. But this time I made the decision not to help. It's hard, Tom, but I know it's the right thing to do." Tom wrapped an arm around me, pulling me closer. "You're a strong woman, Linda. Stronger than you give yourself credit for. You've done all you can. It's up to David now." As we sat there, watching the day give way to night, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The heartaches, the betrayals, but also the love, the growth, and the understanding that sometimes, the hardest decisions are the ones that ultimately save us. Liz's call, David's troubles, they were just echoes of a past that no longer had the power to hurt me. I had found my peace, my strength, and my family. And I was determined to protect that, no matter what came our way. "Always be true to yourself," I murmured, more to myself than to Tom. "Even when it's hard. Especially when it's your own son." Tom squeezed my hand in silent agreement, and in that moment, I knew that no matter what the future held, I would face it with courage and integrity. I had learned to stand my ground, to choose my happiness and well-being, and to let go of those who couldn't respect that. My name's Emily, and if you're expecting a story about fairy tale princesses, you're in the wrong place. My life started pretty standard. I was born to Joe and Linda, just a regular kid in a small town where everyone knew your name, or at least pretended to. My dad, Joe, was the local go-to guy for any car trouble. His hands were always stained with grease, but he had this smile, you know, the kind that made you think everything was gonna be alright. Mom, Linda, she was part-time at the library and the rest of her time was all about making our little world better. Remember, kindness costs nothing but means everything, she'd say, dropping one of her pearls of wisdom while I was trying to figure out my math homework. Our house was nothing fancy. Imagine a cozy little place that always smelled like something was baking. That was us. Not rich, but not wanting either. Life took a hard left turn when I was 10. My parents were driving home from their anniversary dinner when it happened. A drunk driver. Just like that, they were gone. I moved in with Aunt Sarah after that. She was Dad's distant cousin, lived in a house that seemed to creak and complain more than it stood. Aunt Sarah was a tough cookie, worked odd jobs to keep us afloat. The house, it was like time forgot about it, and fashion? That ship sailed long before it reached our shore. My clothes were hand-me-downs from a time when Aunt Sarah thought bell-bottoms were a revolution. Kid, you gotta toughen up. World's not gonna hand you anything on a silver platter, Aunt Sarah'd say, her voice rough, but not unkind. We'd sit at the table, an assortment of mismatched chairs, and eat whatever concoction she'd managed to put together. Money was tight, but Aunt Sarah always made sure we had enough. Thanks, Aunt Sarah, I'd mumble, pushing food around my plate, lost in thoughts of what could have been. Moving in with Aunt Sarah meant a new school and a whole new set of problems. My first day felt like walking into a lion's den wearing a steak suit. The school was bigger than my old one, and it buzzed with the kind of energy that made my stomach twist into knots. I remember standing at the entrance, clutching my bag like a lifeline, when I first saw Jessica. She had that look, you know, like she owned the place. And in a way, she did. "Who's the new girl?" I heard her ask, her voice dripping with a mix of curiosity and disdain. Her friends shrugged, their eyes scanning me like I was some exhibit. "Looks like she got her clothes from the lost and found." One snickered, and they all laughed. I wished the ground would swallow me whole. Classes were a blur. I tried to keep my head down, but Jessica made that impossible. "Hey, thrift store, answer number 4. She said loudly in math class, making everyone turn to look at me. I stuttered out an answer, feeling my face heat up as the teacher nodded, telling me I was correct. That just made things worse. "Lucky guess," Jessica muttered, loud enough for her friends to hear, and they snickered. Lunchtime was no refuge. I found a corner in the cafeteria, hoping to become part of the scenery. But Jessica and her crew made a beeline for me. "Look, she's trying to hide." "How cute," Jessica said, her voice oozing fake sweetness. I kept my eyes on my food, wishing I could disappear. "Cat got your tongue? Or are you just too poor to talk?" she taunted. I mumbled something about not being hungry, and got up, leaving my half-eaten lunch behind. I could feel their eyes on me as I walked away, their laughter echoing in my ears. The days turned into weeks, and not much changed. I kept to myself, dodging Jessica and her friends whenever I could. Aunt Sarah noticed I was quieter than usual. "What's eating you, kid?" she asked one evening, her eyes narrowing as she looked at me over her glasses. "Nothing, just tired," I lied, picking at my food. "You can tell me, you know. I'm not just your aunt, I'm your friend too," she pressed, her voice softer now. I shook my head, not wanting to burden her with my school problems. She had enough to worry about. "If you say so," she said, but her eyes told me she wasn't convinced. Back at school, I found a small sanctuary in the library. It was quiet, and most importantly, Jessica rarely ventured there. I'd spend my lunches tucked away between the shelves, losing myself in books. One day, while I was reading, a boy from my class, Tom, walked in. He was quiet, not one of Jessica's crowd, but not exactly an outcast either. "Hey, you're Emily, right?" he asked, his voice cautious. I nodded, surprised he knew my name. I've seen how Jessica and her friends treat you. It's not cool, he said, looking genuinely concerned. I shrugged, not sure what to say. No one had acknowledged the bullying before, let alone sympathized with me. You shouldn't let them get to you. They're just bored and mean, he added, pulling a book from the shelf. Tom's words were a small comfort in the storm that was my school life. It was nice to know not everyone was against me, even if it didn't stop Jessica's taunts. Despite the daily grind and the constant dodging of Jessica and her crew, I had this one thing that kept me grounded: singing. It wasn't something I flaunted. Heck, it was more of a secret than my stash of chocolate bars. Singing was my escape, a way to let out everything bottled up inside without making a mess. Aunt Sarah had an old radio that picked up more static than music, but on good days, it caught the local station that played everything from country hits to old rock ballads. Those were the nights I cherished, alone in my room, the music blending with my voice as I sang along to songs, feeling every note and word. One evening, Aunt Sarah caught me. I was belting out a tune, lost in the music, when I turned around and saw her standing at the doorway, a surprised look on her face. "Girl, why didn't you tell me you could sing like that?" she asked, her usual tough demeanor softened by genuine astonishment. I shrugged, feeling my cheeks heat up. "I dunno. Just something I do for me, I guess." Aunt Sarah walked in and sat on the edge of my bed, the mattress creaking under her weight. "You've got a gift, Em. You shouldn't keep it hidden." I fidgeted with the hem of my shirt, not sure how to respond. Praise, especially for something so personal, felt foreign to me. "Thanks, Aunt Sarah. But who's gonna listen to a nobody like me?" I replied, trying to laugh it off. She shook her head, her expression turning serious. "Don't talk about yourself like that. You're not a nobody. You've got something special, and you don't need anyone's approval to shine." It was hard to believe her. At school, I was less than a nobody. But in those moments, with just the hum of the radio in the background, I allowed myself to dream a little. The next day at school, during lunch, I found myself sitting alone again. Tom, the boy who had been kind to me before, came over with his tray and sat down. "Hey, Emily. Mind if I join you?" he asked, his smile friendly. I shook my head, grateful for the company. "No, not at all. Thanks." We ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Tom spoke up again. "I heard you humming the other day. You've got a nice voice," he said casually, picking at his food. I felt my face go red. "Oh, that. It's nothing, really. Just humming." Tom looked at me, his eyes earnest. "You should give yourself more credit. I think you're really good." I laughed nervously, not used to the attention. "Thanks, but I'm not sure singing in the school hall counts as really good." He shrugged, a grin playing on his lips. "Maybe not, but it's a start. Ever think about joining the school choir or something?" As I made my way to class, his words echoed in my head. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. But old habits die hard, and my courage wasn't ready to stand up to Jessica's scrutiny, let alone a crowd. After high school, my path didn't lead to college or some grand adventure. Instead, I landed a job as a cleaner in one of those fancy office buildings downtown. The kind with glass doors so shiny, you'd hesitate to touch them for fear of leaving a smudge. It was a world away from anything I'd known, filled with people who carried themselves like they were the main characters in a movie where I'd be lucky to get a walk-on part. The job was straightforward: show up before dawn, clean until the offices began to fill, and then vanish before I became too visible. It was as if I moved in a parallel universe, one where I was a ghost, seen but not acknowledged. Days turned into weeks, and the routine became my life. Wake up, clean, go home, and then do it all over again. The interactions with the office workers were minimal. One evening, Aunt Sarah noticed my quiet contemplation over dinner. She had that way of looking at you, like she could read all the things you didn't say out loud. "What's on your mind, Em?" she asked, her voice cutting through the silence of our small kitchen. Just thinking about work, I replied, pushing my food around the plate. Anything specific? You've been quiet lately, quieter than usual. She prodded, her eyes sharp and concerned. I sighed, not sure how to explain the loneliness of being unseen or the strange comfort I found in that brief moment of acknowledgement. It's nothing, really. Just, sometimes, I feel like a ghost there. Aunt Sarah frowned, putting her fork down. You're no ghost, Emily. You're real, and you matter. Don't let how those folks treat you make you feel any less. Her grip was firm, grounding. It reminded me of the strength I'd forgotten I had. Maybe I was a ghost in that office, but to Aunt Sarah, I was as real as it gets. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to start changing how I saw myself. Life as a cleaner in a high-rise filled with the city's movers and shakers wasn't exactly what I had dreamt of as a kid. But it paid the bills, or at least most of them. The monotony of my days was broken only by the brief nods or half-smiles from a few kind souls, but mostly I was just a shadow, moving silently through the corridors and offices. That all changed the day Ms. Anderson arrived. She was the new director of the company, a position that usually meant more suits, more demands, and less recognition for someone like me. Except, Ms. Anderson wasn't like the rest. It was late, another long day of scrubbing and cleaning, when I first met her. I was emptying trash bins in the deserted offices when she walked in. Most would have just passed by without a word, but not Ms. Anderson. Working late, I see. Thank you for keeping this place spotless, she said, her voice warm and appreciative. I almost dropped the trash bag in surprise. Oh, no problem. It's just, my job, you know? She smiled, a genuine one that reached her eyes. Yes, but it's hard work, and I want you to know it doesn't go unnoticed. I didn't know what to say. No one had ever thanked me like that before, especially not someone in her position. Thank you, Ms. Anderson. That means a lot. I managed, feeling my cheeks heat up. She nodded, then glanced at her watch. Late hours, huh? Must be tough balancing life with such a demanding schedule. I shrugged, a bit uncomfortable with the attention. It's okay. Gotta do what you gotta do, right? Ms. Anderson's expression softened. True. But everyone deserves a break now and then. How about we work out a more flexible schedule for you? Maybe split your time between here and the store next door? They're looking for someone, and it could be a good opportunity for you to earn a bit more without stretching yourself too thin. I blinked, surprised by her offer. Really? That would be amazing, Ms. Anderson. Thank you. She smiled. It's settled then. I'll speak to the store manager tomorrow. Don't thank me yet, though. You earned this. Walking home that night, I felt lighter than I had in months. Ms. Anderson's kindness was a beacon in the fog that had become my life. For the first time in a long while, I felt seen. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Working 2 jobs was tiring, but the change in routine was refreshing. With the extra money, I allowed myself the luxury of buying some new clothes and even got a haircut. It wasn't much, but it made a world of difference in how I saw myself and, apparently, how others saw me too. The first day I walked into the office with my new look, I caught a few surprised glances from my coworkers. Even the stoic Mr. Jenkins, who barely ever acknowledged anyone, did a double take. Emily, is that you? You look different, he said, his usual gruff tone tinged with something like respect. I smiled, feeling a newfound confidence. Yeah, it's me. Just thought it was time for a change. Well, it suits you. Keep up the good work, he replied, before heading into his office. Those few words, simple as they were, felt like a victory. I was still the same Emily, but for once, I didn't feel invisible. Working those night shifts turned into something special for me, like I'd found a little slice of freedom where I could just be me, singing my heart out in the empty corridors. The acoustics in that place? Unreal. It felt like singing inside a grand cathedral, except it was just an office building after everyone had gone home. One night, while I was lost in the music, belting out tunes as I mopped, I didn't realize I wasn't alone. The boss, Ms. Anderson, was also a night owl, preferring the quiet of the office to get her work done. She stumbled upon me mid-chorus and was, to my surprise, blown away. "Emily, that was incredible," she said, her eyes wide with what I could only guess was genuine amazement. I nearly jumped out of my skin, embarrassed to be caught like that. "Oh, shoot. I'm sorry, Ms. Anderson. I didn't think anyone was here." "I'll, keep it down." "No, don't you dare," she insisted, her voice firm but kind. "You've got something special, Emily. Ever thought about auditioning? Like, for real?" The thought had crossed my mind, sure, but fear always had a way of keeping me grounded. "No way," I laughed it off. It's just for fun, you know?" But Ms. Anderson wasn't having any of my excuses. "You need to do something with that voice. It's too good to be hidden away in here." I appreciated her words, but my nerves weren't ready for that kind of leap. "Thanks, but I don't think I'm cut out for that sort of thing." Fast forward to another late shift, and there I was, humming away, thinking I was alone again. Suddenly, this enthusiastic voice breaks through. "Wow. That voice. You've got talent." I spun around, heart racing, to see this guy with the kindest eyes giving me the biggest grin. I was mortified, my face must have been 50 shades of red. Before I could bolt, Ms. Anderson popped out from her office. "Emily, meet my brother, the music producer. I told you I had a surprise for you." Her brother, huh? This was her idea of a surprise? My knees felt like jelly. He stepped forward, all smiles. "That was something else, hearing you sing. How about you come audition at my studio? There's no pressure, but I think you've got something worth exploring." My brain was screaming, "Run," but something in his gaze, so warm and encouraging, made me pause. I don't know," I stammered. "I've never done anything like that before." Ms. Anderson nudged me gently. "What's there to lose, Emily? Give it a shot." Standing there, between my boss and her brother, something clicked. Maybe it was time to step out of the shadows, to see what I could do if I let go of the fear. "Okay," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'll try." Taking that leap, deciding to audition at the studio, was like stepping off a cliff and hoping I'd sprout wings on the way down. The day of the audition, my nerves were shot. I showed up at the studio, a nondescript building that belied the dreams being made inside, clutching my little notebook of songs like a lifeline. Ms. Anderson's brother, Mark, met me at the door with a smile that was meant to be reassuring. "Ready to knock 'em dead?" he joked, leading me inside. I managed a weak smile, my stomach doing flips. "Ready as I'll ever be," I said, though my voice betrayed the quiver of my nerves. The studio was cool and dim, filled with equipment that looked both intimidating and exciting. Mark introduced me to a small panel of people who would be listening. "Don't mind us," one of them said, a woman with a kind face. "Just do your thing." Easier said than done, I thought. But as the music started, something magical happened. My nerves melted away, my voice found its strength, and the song flowed through me like I was born to do just this. When I finished, the room was silent for a heartbeat, too, then erupted into applause. "Wow," Mark said, his eyes wide. "Just, wow." I blushed, overwhelmed by the response. "Thank you," I murmured, barely loud enough to be heard. Mark walked me out afterward, his excitement palpable. "Emily, that was incredible. We need to talk about what comes next." "What comes next?" I echoed, the reality of what was happening starting to sink in. "Yes." Mark was practically bouncing on his heels. "Recording, an album, gigs, the whole 9 yards. You're what we've been looking for." The next few months were a whirlwind. Recording sessions became my new normal. I poured my heart and soul into every track, driven by a mix of fear and exhilaration. And when the album finally dropped, it was like a bomb went off in my life. Suddenly, I was everywhere: radio, TV, online. My stage name, Erica Clark, became a byword for fresh talent, my songs the soundtrack for countless lives. It was surreal, watching my face on screen, hearing my voice on the radio, and knowing it was me they were all talking about. One night, after a particularly successful gig, Mark found me backstage, a massive grin on his face. "You did it, Emily. You're a star." I laughed, the sound mingling with the residual adrenaline from the performance. "Feels weird, doesn't it? Yesterday's cleaner, today's sensation." Mark clapped me on the back. "That's how talent works, it doesn't matter where you come from. It's where you're going that counts." Years had flown by since my high school days, each one bringing its own set of challenges and triumphs. Yet, when the invitation to the high school reunion landed in my mailbox, it felt like stepping back in time. I hesitated at first, memories of those difficult years flooding back. But something inside me stirred, a curiosity to face the past, now that I had found my voice and my place in the world. I decided to go, but not as the country star Erica Clark everyone knew from the screens and radio waves. Instead, I slipped back into my old, simpler clothes, the ones that reminded me of where I came from. It was my way of testing the waters, to see if perceptions had changed, to see if I had truly moved beyond the girl I once was. Walking into the reunion, the buzz of conversation and laughter hit me like a wave. I scanned the room, recognizing faces that had aged but remained the same in so many ways. And then I saw her, Jessica, the queen bee of my teenage years, surrounded by a familiar crowd. "Emily? Is that you?" she asked, her tone dripping with the same condescension I remembered all too well. "Heard you've been cleaning up, literally. Still playing with mops and buckets?" The crowd around her laughed, a harsh sound that once would have made me shrink. But I stood my ground, feeling a smile spread across my face. "Actually, Jessica, cleaning's honest work. Not everyone's lucky enough to find something they love doing." A murmur of surprise rippled through the onlookers. Jessica's smile faltered, her eyes searching mine for a hint of the girl she used to torment. "She didn't find her." "And what about you, Emily? Any dreams come true, or are you still living in your fantasy world?" she prodded, her voice laced with mock concern. Before I could answer, the room's attention was diverted to the entrance. Mark, my producer and now husband, walked in, his presence commanding and assured. The room went silent, every pair of eyes turning to him, then back to me in disbelief. "Sorry I'm late, love," Mark said, his voice carrying easily over the sudden quiet, reaching for my hand. "Traffic was a nightmare." Jessica's mouth hung open, her composure slipping. "Mark Anderson? A famous music producer? Your husband," she managed to squeak out, her eyes wide. "Yes, my husband," I replied, my voice steady and clear. "And my partner in more ways than one." Whispers filled the room, a mix of shock and awe, as people started putting the pieces together. "So Erica Clark is our Emily? That Erica, the country star? Damn me, Erica Clark herself and her husband." I felt a surge of pride, not for the fame or the success, but for the journey that had brought me here, to this moment of undeniable truth. Jessica stepped forward, a false smile plastered on her face. "Emily, I had no idea. I'm happy for you. Maybe your husband could listen to me sing sometime? I've been working on my voice." The irony of the moment wasn't lost on me. "Jessica, finding your voice is about more than singing. It's about who you are, standing up for yourself, and not tearing others down. As for singing, well, maybe start with singing for yourself, not for what others can do for you." Her face fell, the reality of my words sinking in. The crowd around us began to dissipate, conversations resuming, the moment of drama fading into just another reunion story. Mark squeezed my hand, a silent message of support and love. "Ready to go?" he asked, his gaze warm. I nodded, taking one last look around the room. "Yeah, let's go home." Walking out of that reunion, I realized that the approval I once sought from those very halls no longer mattered. I had found my voice, my strength, and, most importantly, I had found myself. And that was all the recognition I needed.